And what I want to say before we get started is you're all at different points in the room and all your children are at different points right now. And it doesn't actually matter at this stage. If it's year 11, it's okay. It doesn't matter where you're at right now, where your child is at. We can put the support in place from today that is going to make them enormously successful in their GCSEs. So where we're going tonight, we're going to think about three main things. Why your child probably isn't revising as effectively as they could be at the moment. What effective revision looks like, and then how are we going to make this happen, us as school, you at home. In terms of preparation for this, the resources you're going to hear about tonight, I've read a number of books. These four, very interesting on this topic. This one in particular, Inventing Ourselves, is really interesting. It's by a cognitive scientist who specializes in the adolescent brain, and she's been a part of loads of different experiments about just understanding it better. So that's where a lot of the information comes from. So if you want to read it, if you're interested in that, do have a read from some more information from those. So firstly, let's think about why teenagers are complicated. I wonder if you could just have a think for a moment. Maybe just turn to your neighbor to break things up. And if you're happy to share with them, what was the most outrageous thing that you did in your teenage years? That looking back now, you kind of don't really understand why you did it. And if you're happy to share that, I'll give you 30 seconds now. Share it with your neighbor if you're happy to. I was thinking about sharing mine. But as I look around the room, I see there are current students in the room. And so mine will have to wait for another day. But I'll just say I nearly died or hurt myself very badly. Now, parenting a teenager is, without a doubt, one of the hardest jobs in the world. And as a parent, as I said, of young uns, I'm already aware of the struggle of the teenage years. Now, it's one thing to see a teenager during the day as their school teacher. I know it's very different to have them at home all the time, and I know how complicated it is. And cognitive science shows us that the teenage brain is actually under construction. It's very interesting what we used to think in science. We used to think that development went like this. That you had a speedy bit of development from birth, and then things kind of sped up a little bit between 12 and then adolescence, and then things kind of, then you're an adult, and you're an adult now, so you're not making any crazy decisions. You've grown up, you're mature. But actually, science shows us that things are actually very different to that. That actually, yes, progress does seem to go that way in the brain, but then between the years of 12 and 22, things go very, very differently in a teenage brain. And it's actually under a physical reconstruction during this time, which helps us understand some of the weird decisions that are made, some of the processing that goes on, and some of the emotional responses to some quite normal things. And interestingly, this happens in every culture around the world. So you can go to a culture where children are sent to work when they're 8 or 9 years old. The same thing is happening in their brains. It's not a Western thing. We used to think, you're sending them to secondary school, and there's all these secondary school pressures, and then they go to uni, and then they finish uni around 21, 22, and now they're in adulthood. And actually, it's not environmental. There are physical, cognitive changes in the brain during this time. And it's really helpful to know that, because it helps us to sympathize with our young people while they're going through this. I had to edit this for swearing, but this is a comment from a wombat expert who talks about baby wombats being super, super cute, but as soon as they hit adolescence, they just hate everybody and everything. They go from running around between your legs, cute as a button, to little, and I deleted the expletive, they nip you, they wreck you, they bite you, they destroy your floor, she wrote, they destroy everything. And it's very interesting to know that actually it's not just humans. In all adolescents, in every animal, we get this same repeat pattern. And the thesis of the book I told you about is, her idea is, from all the studies she's done, is that leading between that time of age 12 to 22, your young person is working out who they are. They are trying to concrete their identity, and it's an intense experience of time. And it ends at around 22, when someone starts to feel a bit, I kind of get who I am now. But we're kind of throwing GCSEs into the mix, maybe what is not the best point for them to be dealing with such a hard thing to do. Now, from age 11, teenagers start to realize they're being observed and they're being critiqued. So this was written about in the 1960s. It's called imaginary audience. So a teenager can be embarrassed about something when there's no one else around. They might say, Dad, you're so embarrassing. And you'll look around and you're like, yeah, this isn't embarrassing. There's no one here to be embarrassed in front of. But actually, teenagers act and feel like, and their brain reacts like they're constantly being critiqued and constantly being judged. And so sometimes when you say something to them that comes across potentially a little bit judgmental or critical, they already are at a heightened point of I'm already feeling massively critiqued and judged, and you're just adding something on top to an emotion I'm already feeling. The thing that they're hypersensitive to is social exclusion. So we'll see in a minute that peers are where they get most of their grounding in their identity in a lot of this period of time. So they're looking to their peers, their friends at school, people their age, for validation of their identity. And so the idea that they might be removed or can't go to a party or can't stay late out with their friends or that they've done something that's embarrassing or not socially acceptable by their friendship group is terrifying to them. And it's really helpful to remember that when we're putting sanctions in place, putting boundaries in place, that's going to be a real difficult area. If you look at mice drinking alcohol, I don't know if you're interested in that sort of thing, but when you look at mice drinking alcohol, when they're with their peers, as juveniles, they drink a lot more alcohol than when they're by themselves. Now that I thought was absolutely fascinating, that even mice do that. And so I'm sure your teenagers don't do this, but when they're old enough to go off and be in an environment with peers and alcohol, even mice are going to find it susceptible to drink too much. And this is a very good insight into how teenage brains work. There's another study done with stoplights where they're in a fake car and they have to rush around a track. And they have to get the best possible time they can. And if they want to, they can jump a red light. And again, it was discovered that when the teenagers were doing this by themselves, generally, they weren't taking as many risks as when their friends were there. So we keep coming back to the same idea here that peers are massively influential on teenagers, and especially in the area of risk-taking. When I talked about GCSEs being thrown in the mix, if you look at the ages here for where we're influenced by our peers and we're not, actually, thankfully, we're going to become a bit more influenced by adults as we're coming back to age 15 to 18. So this is a really, really good time to have conversations with your children about what they want out of life and how you can best support them. There it is, helpful circle there. Now, when it comes to teenagers and sanctions and rewards, the bottom line for teenagers is often this one: will this lead to me to be more accepted by my peers? And it might not ever present itself as that, but any reward or something you might offer, the bottom line for them is this going to make me more socially accepted by my friends at school, by people I know? And sadly, lots of teenagers will sacrifice their chances of success for acceptance from their peers. So if I had to pick one of the two, it would be I'd be accepted by my friends over I'm going to nail my GCSEs and come out with amazing outcomes. And if I offered you £5 now or £50 in a year's time, who would take the £5? I'm going to look at the teenager in the room. No pressure, pal. No pressure now. Most teenagers go for the quick reward. If I can have it now, I'll have it now. You might have had the experience of dinner's ready in 5 minutes and caught your child eating a pack of biscuits or something because they just want it now. There's no that long-term wait. So again with GCSEs, if you've got a 2-year course and there's an exam in 2 years' time, the idea that they're going to knuckle down and start working hard for something that's that far away is a barrier we have to get around. This is a really difficult one. While the brain's under construction, a teenager, an adolescent should have 9 hours sleep a night. 9 hours sleep a night. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are enjoying 9 hours sleep a night or if you think your adolescent children are, because I imagine they are not. And so what's often happening here is they're not getting enough sleep, they're coming to school, and they're not on their A game. They're not 100% when they arrive. So if we could pause here for a quick poll, just to break up my speaking. Have a think about that. Have you seen any of these? Have you seen any of these in action with your peers? If you go to your Slido now, the QR code is there again. Have you seen the power of peers at work? The need for sleep. The quick gratification. So that's one of the reasons they might not be revising as effectively as they could be. We're going to think now about what effective revision is. Now, if you're interested in cognitive science, you'll generally read about 3 types of memory: short-term memory, working memory, and long-term memory. And I'm just going to talk about working memory and long-term memory tonight, because in terms of learning and revising, these are the 2 most important things we can think about. Now, working memory is a lot like a desk. I've got 2 desks here. I'm going to step away from the microphone for a moment. Working memory is what you can think about and work with in your mind. That microphone is making a funny noise. I'm going to put it on here. While you're listening to me talk now and watching me with this microphone, it's quite helpful actually, because you can only, apparently, most people can hold 4 things in their mind at the same time. So you're listening to my voice, you're thinking about what I'm saying, you're wondering why I'm walking over to the desk, there's a microphone making a funny noise, there's probably some other stuff going on, did you leave the fridge open, what are you going to cook when you get home tonight, etc., etc., etc. But most people can hold 4 things in their mind at the same time. And it's helpful to think about memory like a desk. So some students don't have very big desks. So when they're presented with a maths equation, there's only a couple of things they can really work with at the same time. Other students have got massive working memories. So you can give them a very complicated maths equation. You can ask them an essay question, which requires them to come up with loads of dates from history, quotes from the Bible, etc. And they'll be able to work with all those things at the same time. And working memory works alongside long-term memory. Long-term memory, just realised I've got to go over there now. Long-term memory is like a filing cabinet. I did bring this, and it's incredibly heavy. I'm going to say that before I can't lift it. It's like a filing cabinet, which is full of stuff. Full of stuff. So your memory can hold enormous things. And some things are stored in there and really easy to access. So if I said 2 + 2, you'd say... Thank you. And if I said, what's your postcode, you'd say, because it's instantly there. It's the top shelf of your long-term memory. You can just open up, reach back into that long-term memory, and you can just grab things straight away. Now, students' ability to do well in their exams relies on 2 things. The size of their working memory and what they can access from their long-term memory. Now, this is going to sound frustrating to some of you, but it's okay. You can't change the size of your working memory. So your working memory is set for life. There's very little things. You can boost the power of it, but your working memory is set for life. But your long-term memory is absolutely limitless. There is no end to the long-term memory. You can continue to learn and learn and learn and learn and commit things to your long-term memory until you're dead, and it never reaches full capacity. It just keeps on giving. So, I'm going to show you 2 examples now, and I want you to think about which one sounds most like your child. Are they a quick thinker? Do they do well on end of topic tests? Do they try and guess what you're saying before you finished it? Did they do really well in primary school assessments? And do they seem to do really well without a lot of work? Or are they a bit slower to get going? Do they get disappointed by assessment results? Do they think they're not smart? Do they struggle with primary school assessments? And do they have to do a lot of work to achieve well in assessments? If you're happy to share, just share with your neighbour now which one sounds more like your child. It's unlikely they're going to be necessarily one or the other, but they might be closer to one than the other. And I will ask you with the next QR code to share that. Now, some thinkers, cognitive science, came up with 2 ways of explaining this. They said that most people are like race cars or they're like hikers. I'm going to mix analogies now, okay? The big desk, for the sake of this, is the race car. The small desk is the hiker. And what it means is that when it comes to understanding something, basically, when they look at a puzzle, their ability to quickly get the solution to the puzzle and understand it would depend on the side of their working memory. So a sports car has got a massive working memory. So I've got students in my class right now, and I'll poise a difficult question. And we're doing a lot of cold calling at the moment, where we ask everyone the same question, but occasionally we might do hands up. If you know the answer, hands up. So I'll say, there's a difficult question, and I'll poise it, and I'll expect to wait for a while people work it out. Often this is a business studies maths question, which involves 4 or 5 different elements coming together. And before I know it, a hand's come up, and I'll say, Harry, what do you think? And he'll tell me the right answer. And the class will turn around and look at Harry in disbelief at how quickly Harry got to the correct answer. It was crazy quick. So he would have what we would call a race car memory, which is not necessarily a strength, and I'll explain why in a minute. Other students are like hikers, all right? They've got a smaller working memory. Now, they can still understand things, but it takes them longer to get there. So they have to think more about things, think hard about things, maybe write a few notes down as they go, but eventually they get to the destination and they understand something. Now, if we go back to this analogy here, this explanation, you're stuck with your working memory, your long-term memory is limitless. I've jumped ahead, apologies. what we need to do is we need to work out how do we support the race cars to ensure they get number 9s, and how do we support the ones with the smaller working memories get where they need to go. Now, there's benefits and there's downsides of both. As I said, most people think, I want to be a race car. I want that working memory that's real quick so I can be Harry and get to the answer quickly. Working memory is capable of holding lots of information, so they can deal with a lot of things at the same time. They can also answer complex questions which require lots of different layers of thinking. And they can hold it all in their head without a pen and a piece of paper. They don't need to work things out on paper as much as hikers, and they can take to a new topic quickly. They can also achieve highly on an end-of-topic test with very little effort. However, there's lots of downsides. Because a race car gets to the destination quickly, they don't spend time thinking hard about how they got there. And if you don't spend time thinking hard about things, you do not commit them to your long-term memory. Race cars do not learn the dangers of procrastination. They make academic success often a big part of their identity, which is a big thing. So Harry at the back of my business room, the pressure was massive for him to do really well every single test. What did Harry get? What did Harry get? And Harry was in danger of making that such a big part of who he was that if he ever got a bad test grade, it was like his identity was crumbling. And that's a real danger for race cars. They don't often push themselves because they think it comes easy to. They don't need to push themselves, so they don't. And they learn that they can be very successful academically without revision and fail when it really, really counts. The amount of Harrys we have who smash it all year round, and then it comes to the real thing and drop grades like you wouldn't believe is enormous. We want to really support our Harrys and help them to realize they have to go through the processes we're going to talk about tonight. Hikers, on the other hand, are reliant on storing information in the long-term memory. They have to do it. If they want to do anything on a test, they have to spend the time going over it, thinking hard about it, working through it, testing themselves so that it's stored in the long-term memory. They also need to think harder and longer than race cars do and commit information to their long-term memory naturally. If you think about a race car, if you're going fast in a race car, you're not taking anything in. You're just going straight to that destination. Whereas a hiker is smelling the leaves, and touching the vines and looking at the waterfalls and, taking it all in on the way there. And that process with learning stores it in their long-term memory. They learn they cannot procrastinate. And they always still get to the destination. They also often focus more on the processes involved than race cars. The danger of being a hiker is comparison. I'm not Harry, so I'm not smart. That's often what some of our students say with smaller memories. It's not about smartness, but that's often the feeling they have about themselves. They think I'm not academic. They get frustrated with a difficult question and move on to it, don't come back to it. Or they've had a bad experience revising. I've tried revising, it didn't work. I'm not going to do that again. They need a lot more practice than racing cars. Here's a dude I was reading about recently. I'm probably going to pronounce his name wrong, but I'm going to give it anyway. Santiago Ramon Calia. Now, he was not successful at school. He was always being told off for daydreaming, not paying attention, didn't spend a lot of time in school at all, wasn't a fan of it, didn't feel able, didn't feel academic smart. He wanted to do art. Art was a big thing for him. However, he ended up being called the father of modern neuroscience, and he also earned the Nobel Prize for work in science. When it was unpicked speaking to him about his successes, he said that his success came from the fact that he wasn't a genius. His scientific breakthroughs came precisely because of his slower, flexible way of thinking. When he was wrong, he could change his mind, whereas the geniuses he worked with, on the other hand, were used to being right and had little practice in acknowledging and correcting errors. So their race car brains tended to jump to conclusions with speedy answers, and when they were wrong, they were unable to correct their mistakes. Instead, they'd use their intelligence to find ways to rationalize things so they might have been right after all. And he's a really interesting example and a great role model for some of our students who do have a smaller working memory, that they can be incredibly, incredibly successful. So I'll pause there. If you wouldn't mind sharing, if you're happy to do it, if you could get the slide out and let me know whether you think your child is closer to a race car or a hiker. I'll be interested to see how the room is split. Now, this is key, and this is really, really important, that the route to academic success is the same. So actually, our race cars and our hikers need to do the same things if they want to be successful in their GCSEs and their A-levels. And it all comes down to this. You would have heard this called recall or retrieval practice, but effectively what our brains need to do if we want to learn something is the first time we hear about it or think about it, it leaves a faint initial learning, but then every single time we retrieve it, we make those links stronger in our brain and we're able to commit things to our long-term memory. I will send some of these slides out so you can have a look at these for yourself. But effectively, if you're interested in it, we've got our working memory represented by the octopus. You can see this octopus has got a race car memory, able to juggle 8 things at the same time, whereas most of us can only juggle 4 things at the same time. The long-term memory is stored in this part of the brain. And what happens is that our working memories work with our hippocampi to get to the long-term memory. It works like an index. Okay, so it's like a contents page or an index at the back of a book to show you where to find stuff in your long-term memory. However, as we do more and more and more practice, our working memory is able to bypass our hippocampi and get to the long-term memory to retrieve stuff faster. So when I ask you for your postcode, that's a really quick route you've got from your working memory to your long-term memory, and you can strengthen those routes and speed things up. You might have heard about the knowledge test that black cab drivers do when they've actually measured some of their hippocampis, and they're bigger, they're physically bigger, which shows that the more you practice something, test yourself, do it and do it and do it, you are actually changing your brain and developing your long-term memory. So if your child says, I just don't get it, I can never get it, I'll never understand it, that is never correct, actually. And it's just practice, 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 practice that will get them to where they want to be. Now, I thought it'd be helpful to talk about 4 Ps to help you remember this as we go away. So basically what they need to do to be successful is patient, persistent, and purposeful practice. Okay, I'm going to take you through those 4 things just now. So, patience. Firstly, we've got to think about what effective revision looks like. Now, when I was younger and I was asked to revise, what I would do is I would pick up an exercise book or a textbook, and I know our teenagers do that because I've asked them to show me in the past, show me how you revise, and they'll get a textbook out and they'll start looking at it, turning the pages, looking at the textbook, looking at me, looking at the textbook, looking at me, and they'll get to a page and they'll start reading it, and I say, what are you doing? I'm revising. Okay, what are you revising? Oh, these are the aims of punishment. You see, there's deterrence, reformation, retribution. This one whoa, you seem to know this really well. Yeah, I do. So why are you revising it? What are you doing? And actually, especially teenagers, we want a nice, comfortable ride. We don't want to think hard. We're going to read. We're going to feel comfortable rereading the stuff that we already know. But yeah, I know this. This is making me feel good. Yeah, I know this. And they wouldn't say that out loud, but often that's what they're doing. For it to be effective revision, it's got to be practice. It's got to be, the expression I use is putting your brain to work. So they have to look at something and test themselves. And I see poor revision done all the time. And it might be that students produce loads of colourful stuff, and there's loads of stuff, and writing and stuff, and lots of colours and highlighters. But actually the quality of it in terms of a revision resource is often not very good. And you can tell it's not very good if everything is there for you to see. So if you've got a keyword right next to a definition, and you're just looking at it, that's not going to help you. That is not going to help you at all. We try and get our students to make, and I say try because everyone goes for the easy option, but we try and get our students to make self-testing flashcards. So they look at a question or a keyword, they have to try their hardest to remember the answer or the definition, and then they turn it around and they get to see it once they've thought hard about it. And it's just strengthening that ability to bring stuff from our long-term memory to our working memory so that we can work on it. So that's self-testing flashcards. We also encourage our students to do practice papers. I'm a massive fan of practice papers. I did really well in my A-levels because I was doing a lot of this before I realized it was effective. So my IT A-level, I didn't feel like it was going well, so I just got a hold of the textbook and I got a hold of some practice papers, and I would do one practice paper every week. I'd do one, I'd get like 60%. The next week I'd do a different one, I'd get like 60%. Then I'd go back and do the first one again, I'd get 80%. And I'd done all the practice papers, right? I'd done all the practice papers until I got to the day of the exam. And I opened this was IT A level, and it's happened there was 2 papers. I opened both papers and I knew every single question. I'd seen that question before. I'd seen one just like that one. And this isn't a boast, it is a boast, but I'm just going to show you this works. I got 100%. I got 100% in my A-level, which, I mean, if we had a kid get 100% now, we would be like, we'd put it, on our webpage probably. We'd be really proud of that. So practice papers. And the reason they're good is because you're forcing yourself to test yourself. There's no hiding. They're going to test themselves. They're going to get hold of the mark scheme. They're going to see how they did. They're going to go through that process. And then a big one we're a big fan of is Cornell Notes for Revision. I have a Wise Revised video about this if you want to check this out. It's very popular even with people in the Dominican Republic, so there is some praise for it. But effectively it's a way of making a testing page for you so that you can quiz yourself on what you've done. And that's the effective thing with revision. If your child's producing anything, have a look at it. Is it something that's going to put their brain to work? Or is it just all the information in one place? And that's key, practice. It's also got to be purposeful practice. So we want to guide our students to be really deliberate about what they need to practice and how it needs to be applied. So really deliberate. And I told you already, our students often go for the easy option. So they will naturally go to things they already know. So they need a system where they can look at all the stuff that might come up on the exam, and our teachers will give them that, and they'll find that in all the textbook, all the revision guides, it's there. This is all the stuff I need to know. What is the stuff I don't know yet? Because I need to focus on that stuff. That's the stuff I need to focus on. And as I said, their teachers will give them that. It's in the textbooks. It's in the revision guides. It's also got to be persistent, purposeful practice. So this is what revising for GCSEs and A-levels should look like. The day of your exam, you need to have this much knowledge and this much ability to answer questions. And that's in, 9 months or so for some of you, and a year and a bit for some of you. And we're here today. And this is how much this student knows now, and that's how much they need to know. So what it should look like is the student starts to put their brain to work, revising over time, until eventually, as the weeks and months roll by, they can look back at all their revision they've done, and they're like, hey, I'm ready for this exam. I know it all. I know every sort of question that could come up. I know all the content. I know all the keywords. I'm ready to go. Now, I'm going to be honest, guys. Some students think it works like this. I genuinely think, they think, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait. Okay, I'm ready. I'm going to revise now. And it doesn't work. And one fun fact for why it doesn't work is that a night's sleep is when the brain consolidates learning that occurred that day. So you can't leave it. You have to be doing it now. You have to be doing it persistently because you don't have enough sleep between now and the exams to learn everything you need to learn. All about persistence. And then patience is really critical. I heard this helpful analogy of someone watching a stonemason chipping away a piece of rock, and they hit it over 100 times, little hits, and eventually they gave it one hit and this massive bit of rock fell down. And an amateur watching it said, oh wow, it was the 101st hit that broke the rock. And the expert said, no, every single hit broke the rock. It just that it looked like it broke on the last one. And that's how we have to look at revision. It has to be little and often now, being patient right up until the final event. This is a helpful graph for students to see. So if we had grades up here and time going that way, we naturally think that as we put these revision things in place, our grades are going to slowly come up. All right? That's how we think it's going to happen. But actually, it looks a lot more like this. And so what's going to happen is when your child starts to revise, they're going to be really miffed for a while. They're going to say, this isn't working, just had another test today, it's not working, Mr. Wood lied, he's a liar. Get your money back from Wise Revised, it hasn't worked. But actually, we just got to keep on keeping on, being patient, being persistent, because it does work. I promise you it works, and you will see massive results if you follow the processes. This is what we call the valley of disappointment. So this is the area that we get stuck in for a bit before things start to improve. But it does work, trust me, and things will improve. So patient, persistent, purposeful practice. Back to you guys again now. Could you let me know which one you think your teenager is most likely to struggle with? Will it be being patient, being persistent, being purposeful, or just a practicing element? Are they more likely to be a rereader who doesn't put their brain to work? We are coming into land very soon, guys. We've got some time for questions at the end. I want to share with you a couple of apps that are quite helpful with this regard. Now, if you're on Android, this app is free, but for some reason on Apple, it's like 20 quid. So do think hard about whether it's something you want to purchase or not. It's called Anki. Now we talked about self-testing flashcards. These are ones you can basically make on your phone, or you can download ones that are already made. So loads of GCSE and A-level students have already used this, and you can access their card. So I looked at business. This is off my phone. And you can see their business, all the different sections are in there. I did my RS, my Judaism beliefs and teachings. And what happens is you get a question like that: what are the 6 parts of a business plan? And you then, like I said, you don't look at the answer. You try and do it in your head. You say it out loud. And then you can push the button and the answer appears. Now what's cool about the app is you can say, was it really hard? And I need this question again in 1 minute. Was it pretty hard? And I'd like to see it again in 6 minutes. Was it actually a good question, and I won't see it again for 10 minutes, or was it really easy, and I'll see that one again in 4 days' time. So what it eventually does is, it makes sure that you're focusing on the stuff you don't know, not the stuff you do know. And you can do this with the cards. It's called the Lightner system. So we recommend you get 3 envelopes. One says, often, one says less often, one says rarely. You quiz your flashcards, and all the ones that you get right, you put in one pile. All the ones that you get wrong, you put them in another pile, and then you put them into the envelope, which means you're going to see them less often, which means that you're spending most of your time looking at the stuff you don't know, but occasionally looking at the stuff that you could remember. I had another app, it's disappeared, apologies. Another app called Adapt, might come up in a bit. I'll tell you about that at the end if it doesn't. We'll get to this bit now. So this is, how do we make it happen? You've heard what effective revision is, how do we actually make it happen? Now this is my recommendation for this point onwards. I would suggest that your young person should be doing 2 hours independent work a day, 6 days a week. Now, to put that in context, the highest achieving school in the country right now is called Michaela, and they do 3 hours a day. So they do 3 hours a day, they're highest achieving. 2 hours a day shouldn't be a big push from what they're doing right now. It might be a big push, but it shouldn't be. And at the moment, I'd say the ratio of homework to revision is going to be 4 to 1 if they're in year 11. So rightly, teachers should still be setting homework as part of their scheme of work to get everything covered. A lot of that will be revision stuff. But it should be now, I'd suggest from tonight, or for when you have the conversation, I'm going to talk about in a bit, that they start doing a little bit, every day, 6 days a week. And it should be patient, persistent, purposeful practice. Now, the way to make this work is to make the plan with your teenager. So what I'd like to do is when you leave here tonight, or when you see them tomorrow, you say, we're going to have to have a conversation. We're going to have a conversation. Mr. Woods told me we need to have a conversation. And you find the best time to have a conversation. Now, talking with a teenager sometimes can be difficult. It's not always easy to look them directly in the face, I've discovered. So driving a car, talking to them is a good one. Cooking something, good time to have a conversation. Take the impact out of it. Try not to make it the intensity. But you want to make the plan with the teenager. And one thing that I learned from Arnold Schwarzenegger, who goes to the gym still loads, and he was asked in this interview, why do you still go to the gym? You must be so motivated. And he said, I'm not motivated, I'm just disciplined. I get up, I go to the gym. That's what I do, it's discipline, it's not motivation. And actually studies on motivation show that it's a bit of a farce, really. You might feel motivated one day, but actually like our students expect to feel suddenly motivated, that they're going to be motivated every day to revise for their exams. They're not. They need to be disciplined. They need to say, this is what I'm going to do, and then they need our support to stick to it. So, interestingly, Katie Milkman in her book, How to Change, she talked about behavior change and developing new habits. And she said, it's all about changing your identity. So I want some of your children to come to me maybe in a few months' time and say, I didn't used to revise much, but since my mum and dad came home from the Wise Revised Parents' Evening, and we had the conversation, I'm a changed man or woman or girl. I'm a reviser now. And actually, if there's an identity change that occurs, I'm a reviser. It's not I've started revising, I'm a reviser. That's what I do, it's part of what I do. I do it 6 days a week, 2 hours a time. I'm actually trying to build it at the moment. That's going to be something that sticks, the identity change. Now, in Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about how do you build a habit. And if you want a habit to stick, you have to make it really, really easy. It has to be really, really easy that this is what you're going to do for your revision, this is how it's going to happen. And so, yeah, you want to try and create a scenario where they're able to do the same thing every time. Now, I wasn't blessed enough to have my own desk when I was young, but my mum gave me the end of the dining room table. She said, this can be your patch here. And so I keep on my revision stuff, under the table, and then when it was revision time, I'd get in, put my revision stuff out, and it was my system. So you need a system. You want to make it as easy as possible, and you want to agree before the week begins when the revision is going to happen. It's already decided. So it's Tuesdays. Come on, revision time. Look at the plan. The best way to do this is to make the plan with them. And the way to do that is to have a revision timetable. Now, this is a revision timetable I made. I think I definitely stole the plan from someone else, but I'm going to claim it. And the way we ask students to plan their revision is like this. We say, right, let's say you're going to do 5 revision sessions this week. Put in the time that you're going to start each day. So this person's going to start Monday and Tuesday, 5:30. Thursday, got some plans after school, going to start at 7. Friday, going to start at 5:30, and then going to do some on Saturday at 11. What they then do is they then write explicitly what they're going to do for that time. Now, we recommend 25 minutes to half an hour per subject. They've done some interesting tests with CCTV guards, security guards. They got them to watch CCTV footage for 20 minutes plus, and just to note down any changes that occur. And they discovered that after 25 minutes, the CCTV security guards were unable to detect any change. Even when weird stuff was going on, they just lost the ability to take anything else in. So a really good plan is just a short snap. This is what I'm going to do, 20 minutes, half an hour tops, move on a subject. When I was at my mum's dining table, I'd stack everything on the left. I'd put my little timer on, put it down, 20 minutes on a practice paper, move it across. What's up next? 20 minutes on flashcards, making my keyword flashcards. 20 minutes done, move it across. Next one, mind map, 20 minutes. Does that make sense? And I just had the system, and I'd sit down, time would go real quick, and it worked really well. You fill that in for the rest of the week, and you work out what you're going to do when. And what I've got on the side here, they should have a copy of this, but they can tick off to make sure they've covered everything they need to cover. They then add in, what are they going to do? They said they're going to do the marketing mix in business, what are they actually going to do? So they're going to put in, I'm going to do flashcards, etc. Now the plan is, you do it the week before, you've had the conversation, this is what we're going to do, and that's on the wall now, or wherever you're going to put it, that's the plan for this week. And so you've agreed it, you've had the conversation with them, that's the plan. And so when it comes to Wednesday, bad example, when it comes to Thursday and it's 7 o'clock, you're like, hey, it's revision time. It's expected. This is what we said we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. You're a reviser now, remember? So really important to do it. It's going to alleviate guilt. It's going to reduce arguments. It's going to build their confidence. I'd recommend this calendar plan. Oh, there we go. This is the other app I was going to tell you about. I'll come back to that in a minute. Adapt is an app. This is a free app. And you can put your courses in. I've got some A-level courses here just to check it out, see if it works. And it will do you a plan. It actually can make you a plan. Now, obviously, phones can be a massive distraction. But actually, for making a plan, this could be very helpful. So you want to have that as part of the conversation with your young person. Again, with that, it gives you the opportunity to say how confident they were in their topic, so they can look back and say that's something to revisit, etc. Now, as part of this big conversation you can have, you probably should discuss rewards, all right? Now, rewards for a young person, it might be, some of our students, they've had things before, like they get £1 for every number they get in their GCSE. So a grade 9 gets them £9, etc. But that's a long way away. I would be thinking more here about how you're going to get them week by week to be doing their revision. And for adolescents, you want something immediate or in the very near future. Now, it might be, this is a really good idea for Christmas. Get yourself a cheap calendar, stick it on the wall. It's the revision calendar, all right? And every single time your child does some revision, they can put an R on the day in bright red or something, all right? Now, the beauty of this is that when they start to struggle in March and April, and they are having a panic because they haven't done enough, you can just take the calendar off the wall and go, look at all this revision. Look at what you've done. You have been absolutely amazing. You've got nothing to worry about. Look at all the hard work you put in. It will pay off. Mr. Wood says so. And that's actually for them, part of that habit thing from James Clear, that's a small reward in itself. I can tick that off now. I can feel good. I can feel good. Done my revision today. That's ticked off. Some work done on rewards is that unexpected rewards are really powerful. And this comes down to often just a comment, like an unexpected comment. If you've got like a grandparent or a family friend, you can get involved and you can say to them, oh, so-and-so's done some great revision today. Can you ping him a message or can you give him a call like, oh, I heard you did some great revision. Oh, you heard about my great revision? Yeah, I heard about the great revision. It was great. Or even if you want to ping some of your tutors and teachers, we can go find your child at school And we can say, well, I've heard you're doing great revision at home. That's fantastic. Keep it up. Really proud of you. Well done. And that can be really, really powerful. Then you've got the removal of entitlements. The best way to do this guy's giving me a frown here. You're all right, man. You're all right. The best way to do this is part of the conversation, okay? So what you're going to say to your young person is, Mr. Woods told us that some of the most successful students gave their PlayStation controllers to their parents during the revision season. Or they had an agreement where that was going to be taken away. And it is fun, but I'd approach your young person and say, look, what are we going to put in place? Because we need something. What do you want me to do if you don't do your revision? I read about this one girl who, even at 15 years old, was a real political activist, right? And she said to her mum, right, if I don't do my revision next week, I want you to donate £20 to Shell Oil Company. That's what I want you to do. And then that, for her, I mean, it's a weird sanction, but she did not want her mum to do that at all. And so that really spurred her on, and it was a fun thing. So ask your child, you know, what do you want me to do? If you want to revise, I know you want to revise, you're a reviser now. What do you want me to do if you stop revising? What should I put in place? Do you want me to take the PlayStation controller? Do you want me to stop the pocket money? What's the thing? But get them to say it, so it comes from them. Have a think now. Maybe talk to your neighbour. What do you think your child's going to respond to? Just chat to the parents around you. What do you think is going to be a real good reward, do you think? What sort of sanction might be good to take away if the revision's not being done? Have a quick chat. And I keep saying we're coming into land. We are genuinely coming into land now. So how to have the conversation. You might want to take a snap at the screen if you want to. Ask questions. You know, what do you want to get in your GCSEs? Do you know how you want to be? You know, lots of students don't have ideas about careers yet, and part of that, I think, is the TikTok generation. They want to marry rich. That's what they all told us 2 years ago. Want to marry rich, Mr. Wood. That's my plan. So career, it might not. To my experience, it's unlikely they're going to know a career yet, what they want to do. But you might want to sell them the idea that the more GCSEs they've got, the more options they've got when they're older. So have a conversation. What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And then talk about we. You know, this is us. We're on this journey together. We're with you. We're going to support you through this. We're with you for the revision. We're going to carry you. We're going to be with you. Do blame me. Oh, and do talk about it like it's unavoidable, right? So Mr. Woods said it's 2 hours a day, minimum, 6 days a week. That's what we're doing. That's what we're all doing. So when are we going to do it? It's not if we're going to do it, it's when we're going to do it. And talk about everyone is doing it too, even if they claim not to be. Some of our really successful students did loads of secret revision. For some reason, they didn't want to share with their peers that they were doing it. But it's frustrating because some of the students in class were thinking, I can get away with not doing it because that guy's doing none. He told me, and he's smashing it. And actually, that guy was doing a lot of revision behind the scenes. And work out your rewards and sanctions together. Now, stress comes up a lot because it is a stressful time. And stress can be a very good thing. Obviously, for some of our students, sometimes it's not a good thing, and it's a very serious thing, but it's a good thing to get a bit stressed about, okay? They should be feeling a bit stressed. There's something called transient stress, which is the idea that they're stressed enough to do something, and it's going to help them to perform better. The best thing a stressed person, a stressed student can do is start moving towards where they want to be. That's it. Simple as that. So if they're stressed, they just need to take small steps in the right direction. I've got too much to revise. Well, let's sit down. Let's make a revision plan. It's my biology. I've got no idea where to start. We got a revision book right there. Bring that over here. Let's start on page 1. We'll read it together. So stressed student walking in the right, small steps in the right direction. Now, one thing about going back to our memories, when someone's working memory, gets overloaded to the point of real anger and frustration, that is a good time to stop. So they've been looking at the same maths problem for ages, and they've really hit a wall and they're annoyed. Tell them to walk away, okay? Just to walk away, diffuse. And actually the way the brain works is that they're going to keep on thinking about it anyway, and then when they come back to it, they're in a better place to look at it. So if they get to that point at the dining room table, and they're clearly not in a good way, tell them to take a break. Diffuse, yes. So, get into the habit of asking them to show you. There should be a product of their revision at this point. They should be filling in practice papers and marking them. They should have flashcards to show you. They should be making Cornell notes for a revision. They might, if they're a mind map person, not everyone is, they might be making mind maps. But there should be a product of what they are doing. So if they say I'm revising and they've got nothing to show you, that's not okay. There should be a product at this point of their revision for you to see. What's a nice idea we thought about last year is get them to come up with a 10-question quick quiz once a week. You might say, give me 10 questions to ask you this week. Get them to write it out. And then we're going to have quizzes on Friday. It's going to give you a chocolate bar or something every Friday. We'll do the quiz, see how you get on. Then you keep the quizzes, and then you can bring them out through the year. Oh, here's the one we did in January. Let's go over that one again now. Let's practice. They get it wrong. Oh, good. You got that one wrong. That's the one we're going to revise. Okay, make a note of that. We're doing a flashcard for that one. Good, you got one wrong. Good. Let's keep going. And there's strength in numbers, guys. So unite with your other parent friends, okay? So when you're having the conversation Mr. Wood was talking about, I'm having it on Tuesday. When are you having it? Okay, good, right. And then what we're going to say together about the PlayStation, what we're going to say about Reading Festival, what we're going to say about pocket money. United front is really, really helpful here. Because you might get the classic, Johnny's mum's cool. She leaves it up to him. Johnny's mum is not cool, okay? Not cool. So things to do straight away. Have the conversation, agree the best time, place, location, duration, any exceptions. Agree the rewards, the distractions, the sanctions. Think about all these things. Is they going to have a phone in their room? I would recommend phones away, apart from at times when they're doing particular keyword things with any of those apps. Phones out of the room is ideal. Get a cheap calendar. Really helpful. If they want to use Anki, that's a good thing to work. Revision plan. Can't go wrong with that. And this is a nice idea here to say we're going to be having fortnightly revision check-ins. Okay? So when you're saying, how can I support you? Maybe suggest that. Every 2 weeks, show me what you've got. Let's see how it's going. Let's have a sit down, we'll have a talk about it. How's the plan going? Any different rewards you thought of, any different sanctions? And speak to other parents. And then routinely, check in, do some quizzes. You should be looking at your child's Satchel 1 account. If you don't have a login for that, message Mr. Griffiths, but you should be able to see what the teachers are setting. And scrutinise that. Look at, is it good stuff? Is it good work being set? Is it going to be challenging your child? And the key thing is when they get stressed, remind them of what they've done so far. You've done so well. Don't focus on the big mountain they're going to climb. Look how far you've come. You've worked every day. You've done 6 days a week. You put in the work. It's going to pay off. And the stonemason with the 99 hits.